Imagine standing face to face with Jesus Christ, not in modern times, but over 600 years before his birth in Bethlehem. This extraordinary encounter actually happened, and it took place in one of the most dramatic moments in biblical history, in the courts of King Nebuchadnezzar, the mighty ruler of Babylon. Our story begins in ancient Babylon, a kingdom of unprecedented power and glory. At its helm stood Nebuchadnezzar, a ruler whose name struck fear into the hearts of nations. After conquering Assyria, his eyes turned toward Egypt, but there was one kingdom standing in his way, the small but strategically positioned kingdom of Judah. Little did he know that his interaction with this Jewish nation would lead to an encounter that would shake the very foundations of his beliefs. Nebuchadnezzar was not just any king. He was a proud and ruthless tyrant who took pleasure in displaying his power through acts of cruelty. Yet, recognizing the value of wisdom and knowledge, he made an intriguing decision. He ordered his officials to select young men from the Jewish captives, those who showed promise in wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, to serve in his royal court. Among these chosen few were 4 remarkable young men: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, though you might know them better by their Babylonian names: Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These young men found themselves in a foreign land, surrounded by unfamiliar customs and beliefs, yet they held firmly to their faith. Their unwavering commitment to their God would soon be tested in ways they could never have imagined, leading to one of the most remarkable demonstrations of divine intervention in biblical history. In the heart of Babylon, where power and pride intertwined like the hanging gardens that adorned the city, King Nebuchadnezzar commissioned a monument that would become the catalyst for an extraordinary divine encounter. This was no ordinary statue. It stood 90 feet tall, crafted entirely of gold, gleaming under the Mesopotamian sun as a testament to the king's might and majesty. The creation of this colossal golden image wasn't merely an act of artistic expression. It was a calculated move to consolidate power. Nebuchadnezzar understood that political authority alone wasn't enough. He needed to establish himself as the supreme religious authority as well. And so he orchestrated a grand ceremony, summoning every official, from the highest advisor to the lowest administrator, to gather before this towering symbol of his authority. The decree was simple yet absolute. When the symphony of instruments, the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and pipes, would sound, every soul in attendance must bow down and worship the golden image. The consequence for defiance was equally clear: immediate death in a blazing furnace. In Nebuchadnezzar's mind, this ceremony would demonstrate his complete control over both the bodies and souls of his subjects. As the music echoed across the plain of Dura, thousands of bodies fell prostrate before the golden colossus. The sight must have pleased the king, a sea of submission, a visual representation of his absolute power. Yet, in this moment of seeming triumph, 3 figures remained standing, their silhouettes stark against the horizon of bowed heads. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood tall, their hearts anchored in a conviction that transcended earthly authority. Imagine the immense pressure they faced, not just the threat of a horrific death, but the weight of thousands of eyes upon them. The whispers of their peers, the stark loneliness of being the only ones standing in a crowd of thousands. This wasn't like children stealing glances during prayer time to see who might have their eyes open. This was a matter of life and death. The whispers quickly turned to accusations, as certain Chaldean officials, their hearts heavy with jealousy, rushed to inform the king. These men, who had long resented the rapid rise of the Jewish captives to positions of power, saw their opportunity. Their words dripped with calculated precision as they reminded Nebuchadnezzar of his decree and pointed out the 3 who dared to defy it. "O king, live forever," they began, their false flattery masking their malicious intent. These men have shown no regard for you, O king. They neither serve your gods nor worship the golden image you have erected." The accusation hung in the air like smoke, thick with the promise of impending confrontation. When the news reached Nebuchadnezzar, his reaction was explosive. His face contorted with fury at this challenge to his authority, yet something remarkable happened. Something that speaks to the reputation these three men had built in his court. Instead of immediate execution, the king granted them an audience. This small mercy, this moment of hesitation from a man known for his swift and brutal justice, perhaps hints at the respect he held for these servants. Despite his rage, brought before the king, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego faced a moment that would echo through the centuries. Nebuchadnezzar, his voice carrying both threat and what might have been a trace of hope for their compliance, offered them one last chance. "Is it true?" he demanded, his words cutting through the tense atmosphere. "Do you refuse to serve my gods or worship the golden image I have set up?" Then came one of the most courageous responses ever recorded in the face of tyranny. Their words, spoken with quiet certainty, still resonate with power today. "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter." Consider the boldness of that opening statement. No groveling, no desperate pleas, just pure, unshakable conviction. They continued, their voices steady. "If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, let it be known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." In this moment, these three men demonstrated a faith that transcended mere belief. It was a faith that had already counted the cost and found earthly life itself a price worth paying for loyalty to their God. Their response revealed three profound truths: their unwavering belief in the God of Israel, their trust in his sovereign power, and their commitment to faithfulness regardless of the outcome. The king's rage reached new heights at their response. His face, contorted with fury, reflected the fire that would soon blaze 7 times hotter than usual. Their unwavering faith had challenged not just his authority, but his very identity as supreme ruler. The furnace, already a fearsome instrument of execution, was to become an inferno that would match the burning rage in Nebuchadnezzar's heart. Consider the scene that unfolded. The strongest soldiers in Nebuchadnezzar's army were commanded to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These warriors, men who had helped build an empire through conquest, now found themselves executing 3 unarmed officials, whose only crime was loyalty to their God. The 3 faithful servants were bound in their full attire, their trousers, turbans, and other clothes becoming the very garments they would wear to their apparent doom. The furnace's heat was so intense that an unexpected tragedy occurred. The mighty soldiers who carried Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were themselves consumed by the radiating flames, their lives claimed before they could even complete their grim task. This detail, recorded in Scripture, serves as a testament to the lethal intensity of the fire that awaited the 3 faithful servants. But then, something extraordinary happened. Something that would forever change Nebuchadnezzar's understanding of divine power. As he gazed into the furnace, expecting to witness the swift execution of these defiant officials, the king's expression transformed from satisfaction to utter astonishment. He leaped to his feet, his voice filled with disbelief as he asked his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" His advisors confirmed the obvious. "Certainly, O king." But what Nebuchadnezzar saw defied all natural explanation. "Look," he exclaimed, "I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." In that moment, in the heart of a pagan kingdom, in a furnace heated to kill, the pre-incarnate Christ made his appearance. The 4th figure, walking freely among the flames with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, demonstrated a power far beyond any earthly authority. Here was Jesus, present in the Old Testament, physically manifesting himself in one of humanity's darkest hours to protect those who had stood firm in their faith. The scene that unfolded next would be forever etched in the annals of history. As Nebuchadnezzar approached the door of the blazing furnace, his voice carried a markedly different tone than before. Gone was the arrogant ruler who had demanded universal worship. Instead, he called out, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." The transformation in his address is telling. He who had questioned, "What God can deliver you from my hands?" now acknowledged them as servants of the Most High God. As the three men stepped out of the inferno, a crowd of officials gathered around them, their faces reflecting equal measures of awe and disbelief. The evidence before them defied natural law. Not a hair was singed, not a thread of clothing was scorched, and remarkably, not even the smell of smoke clung to them. What was meant to be a public execution had become a public demonstration of divine power. The fire that should have consumed them had instead only burned away their bonds, leaving them free to walk in the presence of their Savior. This miraculous preservation served as irrefutable proof that the God of Israel was indeed the supreme authority, far above any earthly king or kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar's response to this divine intervention was as dramatic as the miracle itself. The man who had demanded absolute religious authority now became a herald of the true God. His decree, spread throughout his vast empire, declared that any person, nation, or language that spoke against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would face severe consequences. The tyrant who had threatened death to those who wouldn't worship his idol now threatened death to those who would blaspheme the true God. More than just a policy change, this represented a profound personal transformation. Nebuchadnezzar had encountered the living God in a way that shattered his worldview. He had witnessed firsthand that there was a power greater than his own, a God who could override the laws of nature and protect his faithful servants, even in the midst of seemingly certain death. This profound encounter with Jesus in the Old Testament serves as a powerful reminder that Christ's presence spans the entire biblical narrative. While he may not be explicitly named Jesus in these ancient texts, his appearances, known as Christophanies, demonstrate God's consistent involvement in human history long before the incarnation in Bethlehem. Consider how this story illuminates several vital truths about divine intervention and human faith. First, God's deliverance can take different forms. He may rescue us from trials, as he did with the three men in the furnace, or he may sustain us through trials, providing the strength and courage we need to endure. The miracle wasn't just in their survival, it was also in their unwavering faith before they knew they would survive. This account from the book of Daniel represents more than just a historical event. It provides a template for civil disobedience when human authority conflicts with divine command. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's response offers timeless wisdom for believers facing similar challenges. Their respectful but firm stance, their clear articulation of faith, and their willingness to accept any outcome while remaining faithful. The appearance of Christ in the furnace foreshadows his promise to be with his followers in their tribulations. Just as he walked with these three men in their fiery trial, he promises to walk with believers through their own trials. This presence may not always be as visibly dramatic as it was in Babylon, but it is no less real or significant. Moreover, this event demonstrates how God can use the faithful witness of his people to impact even the most hardened hearts. Nebuchadnezzar's transformation from a prideful tyrant to a witness of God's power shows that no one is beyond the reach of divine influence. Through the steadfast faith of these three men, an entire empire was exposed to the reality of the true God. As we reflect on this remarkable story in our modern context, its relevance becomes increasingly clear. Today, we face our own metaphorical furnaces, situations that test our convictions, challenge our faith, and demand unwavering courage. While most of us may not face literal threats to our lives, we encounter daily pressures to compromise our beliefs and values. The courage displayed by Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego speaks directly to these contemporary challenges. Their example teaches us that true faith isn't measured by the absence of trials, but by our response to them. They demonstrate that the power of conviction can withstand even the hottest fires of opposition. Consider how their story applies to our present-day situations. In professional settings, we might face pressure to compromise ethical standards. In social contexts, we might be challenged to conform to practices that conflict with our beliefs. In personal life, we might encounter trials that test our trust in divine providence. Their response, "But even if he does not," provides a model of faith that transcends circumstances and outcomes. Furthermore, their experience reveals an essential truth about divine presence in our trials. Just as the fourth figure appeared in their furnace, we are never alone in our challenges. This divine presence, though perhaps not visible to physical eyes, remains as real and powerful today as it was in ancient Babylon. The transformation of Nebuchadnezzar also offers hope for our contemporary world. It reminds us that even those who seem most opposed to truth can be impacted by unwavering faith and divine intervention. His journey from persecution to praise demonstrates how God can use our faithful witness to influence others, even those in positions of power. As we conclude this extraordinary account, I invite you to consider its personal application in your life. What furnaces are you facing? Where might God be calling you to stand firm in your convictions? Remember, the same God who walked with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in their fiery trial remains present and powerful today. If you found value in this story and its timeless lessons, I encourage you to share it with others who might need this message of hope and courage. Your interaction helps spread these important truths to a wider audience. Please consider liking this video if it has impacted you, sharing it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribing to our channel for more inspiring content like this. If you found particular value in today's message, you can show your appreciation by clicking the thanks button below. Remember, every generation faces its own tests of faith, but the God who showed up in the furnace of Babylon still shows up in our trials today. Thank you for joining me in exploring this powerful testimony of faith, courage, and divine faithfulness.